Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. This is a Comprehensivist Wednesdays that we do in collaboration with the Greater Philadelphia Thinking Society. Today, we are continuing our exploration of C.J. Fearnley's 16 intellectual virtues. This is part 2 of this endeavor. We started out with, in the first part, we managed to cover only 3 of them. So this time, let's see what we end up covering. I'm going to put all the virtues in the chat right now. Okay, these are not all the virtues. I've removed the 3, so you don't get to vote for those 3 because we don't want to discuss the same ones again. All right, so let me do one thing. I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to bring them up one by one, and you're welcome to say one sentence, 1 or 2 sentences about it if you want. Not what you think of it, but what is it? So people who are not familiar with them will get to know what these are, and then we'll go from there. All right. So the first one is adequate breadth. One of the core ideas of Buckminster Fuller is macro-comprehensive and micro-incisive. So you see the number 2 is the breadth, macro-comprehensive. And the number 3, it's adequate depth, micro-incisive. Okay, so those are the first 2. So what we're going to do is after we go through all of them, we get to vote on the top 3 that you want to discuss. So we'll take a vote, and whichever virtues comes on the top, we'll probably have time to discuss between 3 to 5 today. So those are the ones that we are going to discuss. All right. So the first one is adequate breadth. The second one is adequate depth. Does anybody want to say anything about these? If you want to say something about this, just 1 or 2 sentences, really brief, not about what you think of it, but what do they mean? What does it mean? You're welcome to put an exclamation mark. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rolling through these. The number 4 is induction, empiricism, always starting from reality and trying to induce from it, trying to see patterns in reality, always starting with reality and trying to build abstractions of it, from it. That's the process of induction. Number 6 is adequate wholeness for meaning making. Now, meaning is a very deep concept. You know, we've looked at Jordan Peterson and his maps of meaning. It's a very deep topic. And it's a question of, you know, when you look at things and you say, when you look at the whole, what is the meaning of it? So adequate wholeness, how do you make sure that you're focused on the whole? Next is mystique. That is seeing gaps in your knowledge. You always have to recognize that there are gaps in your knowledge, and this is all about being alive to that. All right. So we're going to read through these ones, and then whichever ones, you get to vote for them, and then whichever ones we choose, we'll read CJ's description of them, and then we will discuss them, okay, one by one. Most popular one with most votes first. Next is ambiguity, contradiction, and paradox. By our nature, we prefer certainty to ambiguity. We prefer consistency to contradiction. We prefer the feeling of a whole. Our emotional mechanism does that. This is all about having the tolerance for ambiguity, contradiction, and paradox so that you can compare and contrast multiple possible hypotheses, multiple possible positions in order to come at a conclusion. Number 9 is comprehensive measurement. CJ has done a series on measurement, different kinds of measurement. How do you measure the role of measurement? Let's see. Andrea likes that. Very good. Next is generalized principles and abstractions. This is all about integrating. This is all about, now, I think this is the break where we go into what he calls, the first one is like exploration, where you're trying to explore, go out and try to gather more and more things. The second one is that of integration, of trying to bring everything together. So the next few are going to be about that. Actually, all but the last one is going to be about that. First, okay, very good. So Jyoti has her votes. You're welcome to vote while we're speaking. So you get to say three numbers, and we are going to tabulate. Katie is going to tabulate. Katie is our official storekeeper, vote keeper. So she's going to tabulate them and go from there. The next one is thoroughly refined ignorance. This is a very, very deep concept of ignorance. Again, a very big theme for CJ. All of these, by the way, have multiple meetups behind it and multiple essays behind it. So I strongly recommend you look at the reference that is there on the meetup page to read these descriptions and follow the links. He not only has links to his own presentations, but he has, firstly, beautiful summaries of these, plus a series of videos and other reading reference materials. Next one is integrated judgment. See, judgment is a very, very large topic. And this is all about, how do you judge? How do you form the proper judgment? You don't have to fully know what each of these mean at this stage in order to vote. So you can say, look, I don't know exactly what he means by judgment right now, but it looks interesting to me. So you can include that in your three. And we will read CJ's description of each of them to get us started. Next up is design, evolution, future. So design is I would just focus on the design part here. That's again a large theme. CJ is a big fan of the book Design Way, and we've done a lot of work. He's done a lot of work on that, and so have we here at the meetups. Integrities. Now, this is a very large question. This kind of comes from the religious tradition, holistic thinking traditions of bringing everything together in a wordless way, in an intuitive way. And the last one is in the category of collaboration, and that is collaborative, comprehensive exploration. It's very interesting, more and more I think about it, comprehensivity and collaboration seem to go together, and it's a very deep topic. So folks, these are the 13 that we have on the table for the votes. So now so I'm going to keep my tabulation. I'm going to have two scorekeepers, Katie and me, and we will tabulate all the votes. So it's 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So please go ahead and put 3 numbers in the chat to vote. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. Got 7, 8, 11. 8, 11. Folks, keep voting. 1, 2, 3. 3, 9. 7, 9, 12. Brian votes 7, 9, 12. 7, 9, 12. Okay, Jyoti voted 7, 8, 11. Andrea voted 9, 2, 3. Brian voted 7, 9, 12. Madeline chose only 2, 7 and 8. Okay, Madeline, you get one more vote. You can double up on any of them if you want. Kevin votes for 4, 9, 15. 4, 9, 15. Erin votes for 4, 6, 14. 4, 6, 14. Okay, David also votes for just 2, 10 and 12. 10 and 12. Okay, Rebecca votes for 7, 8, 11. So 7, 8, 11. And Vanessa votes for 5, 6, 9. Oh, 5 is not available. So 6, 9. So 6 and 9. Okay. All right. Katie, you can take a break from your voting duties and you can vote too, please. Wouldn't want your vote not to be counted. And then we will announce the results. Anybody who has voted for 2 has one last chance of voting for one more. You can repeat your vote if you want. So that's going to be Madeline and David. If you want to add one more, you can do that. And then we'll wait for the late vote of Katie because she's been busy tabulating everything for us. So let's see here. Okay, last chance. 4, 6, 8. Very good. 4, 6, 8. Okay. All right. So we're ready. Katie, I'm going to put a number and then you tell me how many votes are there. And then I will also say, we'll make sure it's like we want to make sure that the count is right. 2.
1.
That's correct. 3.
1.
Yes. 4.
3.
6.
3.
7.
4.
8.
4.
9.
4.
10.
1.
11.
2.
12.
2.
13.
None.
14.
1.
15.
1.
Wonderful. It all tallies. So we've got 3 winners and we will focus on discussing these 3, 7, 8, and 9. And then the backups are 4 and 6. All right. So folks, I would like you folks to read the virtues. So we're going to be discussing now virtues one by one. So first, the format now is we're going to, somebody is going to read a virtue. Vanessa is going to start with number 7. Would like volunteers to read. If you would like to read a virtue, type in an R in the chat and we will go in a rotation. And after the virtue is read, then anybody wants to comment on it can type exclamation mark to present their comments. Don't try to, in the first phase, don't try to comment on what other people are saying much. Focus more on what you think, and then we will go ahead and do kind of cross discussion, and then we'll go to the next virtue. And let's see how far we can get. Okay, so number 7. Vanessa, would you do the honors?
Okay, and just to double check, because I believe his numbering from the essay is slightly different, but 7 was.
Hold on. Mistake.
Okay, yes, mistake / seeing gaps.
Yes.
Realizing that there will always be inherent gaps in our understandings, communications, actions, and outcomes. Mistake is aspiration to identify and further minimize these gaps through iterative, comprehensive exploration and design. Formulating good and sometimes naive questions can help us identify and negotiate these gaps. Mistake was introduced in the resource Mistake in Learning and in Life, and elaborated on in the resource Redressing the Crisis of Ignorance.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so comments on it. Mistake. We're going to start with Jyoti, followed by Madeline. Go ahead and type exclamation mark if you'd like to comment. Jyoti.
Vanessa read it all. She said it all. I think what I liked what she was saying to us when I attended this session, that we all make mistakes, but to learn from those mistakes and move on and improve your communication is called learning. That's what I got from him.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. Next up is Madeline, followed by Vanessa.
Yeah, I love this one because it's how we learn. You say, oh, okay, I got that wrong, or wow, I did it this way, it didn't work out, I think I'll do it another way next time. So it's a constant loop, like the OODA loop. It's a constant loop of learning. And I suppose it's epistemic vice would be the absence of it. So maybe closed-mindedness and an unwillingness to admit new facts or ever say, oh, I got that wrong or shouldn't have done that to someone.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Vanessa. Vanessa, go ahead.
I kind of equate this to the inner child we all have within, the fact that always wondering the why, and maybe always trying to get the complete picture and at least understand something. Now, I think that's where, can you imagine the budget would be paid off if you paid a nickel for every why that was asked in a day? So I kind of think of the child that just, if nothing else, they want the answer, maybe not the explanation, but at least a partial answer to maybe ask the next question.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Katie. Katie, go ahead.
Confucius says we make two mistakes when we make a mistake and then we don't admit it. My own definition before I had read Confucius' definition was more of like a rationalization. It's only a mistake if you didn't admit it after you did it. So I think it's exactly what everybody's saying, is the ability to recognize you made a mistake and learn from it.
Wonderful. Thank you. David.
Yeah, I want to include in the category of mistake, not trying. I may have missed something at the beginning, so I was away for a minute here. But so if we don't put ourselves in a situation, we won't comprehend it. If we don't go out of our boundaries, we don't get any new perspective. So, but the risk in doing any of those things is we don't know what we're doing once we're out of our boundaries. So we're confronting the unknown in that way. I see that falling into this area, right? Celebrating the trip and picking ourselves up.
Wonderful. I'm going to read something from Bucky's essay. Bucky has this entire essay, so I'm going to just begin reading it, and let's see how it goes. Mistake by R. Buckminster Fuller. What do you think is the greatest challenge facing young people today as they prepare to assume their caretakership of the world? Was the question recently asked to me by a Midwest high school. From my viewpoint, by far the greatest challenge facing the young people today is that of responding and conforming only to their own most delicately insistent intuitive awareness of what truth seems to them to be, as based on their own experience and not on what others have interpreted to be the truth regarding events of which neither they nor others have experience-based knowledge. He goes on, this is just beginning of it, but I think all of us have tendency of having the bias, confirmation bias, that we want to hold on to whatever it is that is there in our consciousness, whatever our habits are, whatever our emotions are, whatever our thoughts are. There is a tremendous inertia. And this is deliberately looking for gaps. One of my favorite things in mathematics is the Bayes law. And there, one of the simple tricks is to phrase questions in the opposite way. So for example, most people have certain beliefs and they're always looking for confirmation of that beliefs. Instead of saying, okay, what would confirm my beliefs? If you switch and saying, if I was wrong, what would I expect to see? So that you're basically saying, holding open the possibilities that there can be gaps in your knowledge, and you are on lookout for those gaps. Next up is Andrea.
Yeah, so I'm not certain if this is totally relevant, but I was talking to a friend of mine, and this is a little bit of a long story, but I think it's illustrative. So I actually had an interview with a company that I used to work for a couple days ago, and they told me that they had a position open with a guy that I used to work for. And so I assumed that they must have mentioned to him that they were talking to me, and that he must have said, yeah, go ahead and talk to her, and like I'll decide whether or not I'm going to interview her or not, or whatever. And it turned out that in fact they had not talked to him beforehand. And so the next day I got like this rejection email, which to me sounded like, they had not talked to him until after they talked to me, and then they submitted my resume, and then he must have said, oh, no, I'm not at all interested in hiring her. So I was talking to a friend of mine who also used to work for this person, and I said, well, the best thing I can do is probably just contact this person and say, did you ever hear that I applied for the position? And my friend, who also used to work for this guy, said, oh, I really wouldn't want the answer to that question, because, if they didn't talk to you beforehand and then they put your name up in front of him and he said, no, I would never rehire her, then that would be really uncomfortable. And so what I thought was kind of interesting was the bottom line being, we would rather not ask a question if we really don't want the answer, if the answer is going to make us feel bad or make us feel uncomfortable. And, I have to say, one of the benefits of getting older is I care a lot less about whether or not I'm uncomfortable. And I care more about, I know that I could go back to the person and go, oh, I was just interested. And if you don't want to hire me, that's great. But at least now I know the answer to the question. And I'm not, yes, the answer may not have been the answer that I wanted to hear, and it may have made me uncomfortable, but it was kind of better for me to know the answer to the question than just go, oh, I don't really want to know the answer because it would make me uncomfortable. And I think there's a whole thing, there's a book by this woman that I really liked, named Barbara Ehrenreich. And I've totally forgotten the name of it now, but it's called Bright-Sided. And it's all about the fact that we concentrate so much on trying to always be positive in every interaction, that we miss the reality. And she actually talks in the book a couple times about, things that happened with the Challenger explosion, that people didn't want to ask the question because the answer was uncomfortable. And had they asked the question, they might have gotten an answer which might have caused them to correct something. But, oh no, we don't want to know the answer because it's uncomfortable. So anyway, hopefully that's relevant, but kind of interesting.
Wonderful, Andrea. That's a great point. It's like this is rooted in dislike of discomfort. Want to be comfortable, and to say that we're going to go through discomfort in order to pursue the truth. That's the heart. Like Carl Jung says, in filth it would be found. You have to go through the discomfort in order to fix whatever it is that needs fixing. So thank you very much. Next up is going to be number 8. As we don't have any more volunteers, you're welcome to volunteer to read by typing a R. We are reading the description by CJ of each of these things. We'll go back to Vanessa. Vanessa, if you could read number 8, please. So folks, we're doing number 8 and then number 9, and then we'll do number 4 and 6 if we have time. Number 8. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Okay, need to wake up my screen here. Okay, let's see. Oops. Now, what was the title of that one, number 8?
It is ambiguity, contradiction, and paradox.
Why is it when you need something to say? Okay.
Can I read it?
Sure, Jyoti, go ahead.
Okay. The aspiration to lean into and deeply explore the ambiguity, contradictions, and paradoxes we encounter in our exploration in the hopes of gaining access to the creative wellspring of developing great ideas, and truths. William Byers demonstrated the fundamental importance of these virtues in mathematics as introduced in the resource of ambiguity, contradiction, and paradox.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anybody who wants to comment on it, you're welcome to type exclamation mark. Okay, let's see here. Give me a second here. There, I'm going to find this myself. Anybody wants to comment on ambiguity? Otherwise, we'll read it one more time. Give me a second here. Okay, number 8. Okay, ambiguity, contradiction, and paradox. The aspiration to lean into and deeply explore ambiguity, contradictions, and paradox. This is very interesting. Look, I like the term. Lean into and deeply explore. See, most people, again, following what Andrea was saying, most people, they actually run away from or lean away from and skim the surface of anything that is uncomfortable, ambiguous, contradictory, paradox, because it makes you, it causes conflict in your head, and they seek the certainty. So they seek the certainty by going away from it. So I love the term aspiration to lean into and deeply explore. So deeply explore, not only lean into, go toward. It's like if there is a problem, when you see a problem, an ambiguity or a contradiction, you go towards it and deeply explore. So not just go towards it, but start looking at what it is, what is the cause of it, where does it come from? We encounter in our explorations. So again, this is in the context of exploration. You're already committed to exploring the world. See, this is again a very deep point. All of these virtues, they presume the determination on your part to explore the world. You really want to know what the truth is. Therefore, if there is a contradiction, you want to fix it. If there is an ambiguity, you want to resolve the ambiguity and fix it. If there is a paradox, you want to resolve the paradox. So it's in the context of exploration in hopes of gaining access to the creative wellspring. Okay, so why are you doing this? Because you want to gain access to the creative wellspring of developing great ideas and truths. Because many times, the anomalies, if you look at the history of science, there have been these little anomalies. And most people are saying, oh, those are just anomalies, let me forget about it. It basically works. But those people who have leaned into it and explored these anomalies in depth have been able to discover new truths, new things operative there by this commitment. It is gaining access to the creative wellspring. So what is this creative wellspring? The opposite of creativity is stagnation. It is just holding on to your current ideas and blocking out. The creativity lives at the edge of order and chaos. So whenever there is chaos, there is ambiguity, there is contradictions, there is paradox. That is the edge at which the meaning lies. That is the cutting edge of knowledge. By leaning into it, you're actually, that is the wellspring, that is the creative wellspring of different things encountering your current ideas. And to actually authentically encounter them is what this is about. William Byers demonstrates the fundamental importance of these virtues in mathematics as introduced. Now, this is very interesting. Most people, when they think of mathematics, they think of these fixed theorems. But when you actually examine the lives of great mathematicians, you will see that they have the same kind of creativity. They have the same, what shall I say? They are not like, you see, mathematics, again, there was this couple who came, who were experts in polymathy, and they were complaining that the science teachers are their staunchest opponents for theirs trying to build, creativity into the curriculum, bring creativity into curriculum. And I asked them why. He says, because they are focused on the results of science, the formulae. And in so doing, they have lost the spirit of science, which is the spirit of exploration and discovery. So that is what this point is about. Wonderful. Next up is going to be Vanessa, Jyoti, Andrea, and David. Vanessa.
Well, I probably had the seed planted in me as a child when either going hiking or something, that usually the most interesting, beautiful scenery is off the beaten path when you get off the trail, or seeing the unexpected creatures acting in ways that aren't written up in the textbook. And even just observing human behavior, not really growing up in it, but in some religious texts, they're quick to preach it and read about it, but their behavior is antithesis of that, the exact opposite. It's like, okay, did you not read or understand what you read and just trying to make sense of the world? Because I said there's more. It's funny, it's almost the normality is the weirdness. Try to find anything that's like black and white, right to the point. It is what it is. So just, observing, it's like, okay, if you shut your eyes, okay, maybe you can just go with the theorem, the checklist, and go on with your day.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. Next up is Jyoti, Andrea, and David. Jyoti.
Yeah, CJ used to say, life is too short. You have to listen to everybody. You just can't say that this person doesn't agree with what I'm saying, so I can shut my ears and I don't have to focus. You got to listen to the contradictions. You got to listen every point of view. And then you have to come up with some research that would take place in the future, now, at this moment, by just listening to them. And I thought that was profound. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. Next up is Andrea.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I only really had one comment about this, which is I find a lot of times when I'm in a discussion group and we're talking about something that, and I think this is really related to media and, Facebook and whatever, that if you suggest an idea, that people assume that you're making a statement, that it's your opinion, as opposed to simply suggesting, hey, maybe we could look at it this way. And I think I'd really be interested in input from other people about, is there some phrase that I can use before I present an idea that makes it clear that I'm not saying that the idea is my opinion. I'm just saying, here's another way to look at it. So this is a really bad example, but it's the only thing I can think of. As I was talking to somebody about the situation in Ukraine, and I said, have you ever watched the movie The Mouse That Roared? And I said, certainly I think that Ukraine is having a difficult time, but is it possible that it has similarities to the movie? And you have to see the movie to fully understand that. But the person just jumped down my throat about, oh, you're not supportive. And I said, no. I'm not stating an opinion. I'm stating an alternate way to look at a situation. So, if anybody has any really brilliant ideas about how you can preface a different way of looking at things in such a way that people don't assume that you're saying that you agree with that alternate way of looking at things. You're just suggesting that it is an alternate way of looking at things, and you may or may not agree with that alternate way. So that's all.
Thank you, Andrea. I mean, I think it depends a lot on the culture of the person listening as well, and the culture of the person speaking, and the culture of the community in which the context in which this is taking place. Because, I mean, unfortunately, the world has been divided too much into, these positions that are held as absolutes without taking in any more information from anybody. They just, it's just, separate worlds. And if that is there, and if people, so it's a, I mean, that's why this is an intellectual virtue. Very few people actually practice this virtue. I don't have anything more to add, but let's go to David. David, what do you think about ambiguity?
Right. Interesting question, Andrea. I have a feeling that it's more their loss than your loss if they're not hearing what you're offering as enlightening point of view or perspective. But so ambiguity, paradox, and contradiction present themselves as problems. Like right away, we want to attack them as though maybe we want to destroy them. There may be aspects of ambiguity and paradox that are good, and contradiction that are, we have to respect. But I'm going to go on the attack. Anyway, I'll take the attack point of view on this and say, it was just a Bayesian consideration in your terms. So attacking away, so what do they do to ambiguity and paradox? They're due to reality in confrontation with our conscious frame, our cognitive, whatever, let's say our cognitive limitation, because reality is not going to give right off the bat. We're going to have to act on reality, but the ambiguity and contradiction, there's no real contradiction in nature and existence, but we have, our conscious frame is giving us the sense of an ambiguous situation. So we have failed to distinguish and separate within our own concepts something so that it's clear to us why we are torn in two directions looking at the same thing. We have to take our equipment and improve its limits of resolving distinctions at that point. Otherwise, it looks like one lump and it's really two. We have to enhance our ability to. A creative act entails dividing things, perceiving within the chaos. It looks like a meaningless pattern, separating out night and day and saying, no, there really are things that are present here. It's not completely chaotic. And that act of ours is, I like what you said, it's an intellectual, it's a virtue. It's an effort. It's not resting on our current conscious laurels. It's, the resistance to new information is saying, I am fixed, I am what I am, I have my unconscious built, there's nothing to change. I'll just take whatever it hands me. I don't need the ego anymore to reflect and to grow. But it is a call to growth, because reality is requiring us to make a revolution, a turn, and to alter something until we have that, comprehensive or cosmic insight that we have all the perspectives. So I think this is a great one. You're not talking loud enough, Shrikant.
Sorry about that. So let me, I really like this writing. So let me go ahead and read it one more time, and let's see if we can apply it to discussions on social media. The point that Andrea brought up, the aspiration to lean into and deeply explore the ambiguity. Now, what happens is that each media has its own nature. Social media is like an echo chamber. It's the way it is structured. It is connected to people who think alike. And any voice which does not integrate with that, agree with that, it's immediately repulsed, because it is people seeking comfort of kind of commonality of some kind and some kind of views. So it is, by its nature, it seems to be kind of separated out. To lean into and deeply explore ambiguities, contradictions, and paradoxes. See, this is a virtue, as David was saying. It takes effort. It takes you to say that, okay, I really care about the truth here, so I'm going to actually consider the viewpoint that is being presented, and I'm going to honestly try to see if it is true. What is the evidence for it? So you're just honestly looking at it, even if it contradicts with what you think. So all of that, it is fully effort intensive, as opposed to this is like watching TV. Like social media is mostly like watching TV, but many channels going together with the same theme going, and any note which is different from that is so jarring, because it's almost like it's an emotional integration. It is not an intellectual integration. The value is not what is true, but it is saying, let us all feel this way, something like that. So it is a media, which actually promotes that. As we encounter in our explorations, in the hopes of gaining access to creative wellspring. Now, creative wellspring, this is not what people are after when they are using the social media in developing great ideas and truths. Don't think most of these people are going for great ideas and truths. So it's just a background. You need to have the right purpose. You need to have the right standards, and intellectual virtues are virtues in that context. Virtues are the way in which you achieve something, what you're trying to achieve. If it is not virtuous, if it is not the truth, but if it is comfort, then they're not going to have that intellectual virtue. All right, let's go to number 9. It is comprehensive measurement. So I'll have somebody read it. Do we have another volunteer? Otherwise, we'll go with Vanessa first. If you want to read, you can type R. All right, Vanessa, go ahead. This is number 9, comprehensive measurement.
Yes, comprehensive measurement, the aspiration to form a judgment, assessing a subject or situation by integrating an adequate set of particular in-breadth and in-depth measures where each is evaluated in regard to its effects on the world of our lives. Non-demonstrative, including ineffable measures, should be considered along with demonstrative. Comprehensive measurement was introduced in the resource. The standard for all measurements are judgment.
Wonderful. All right. So let's go through it slowly, and then we'll open it up. Go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to comment on this. So comprehensive measurement, the aspiration to form a judgment. So you're trying to form a judgment, assessing a subject or a situation. You're trying to form a judgment about a subject or a situation. And how are you doing that? By integrating. See, this is look at the density of it. This is actually covering a lot of things. It's saying a lot of things. How are you forming a judgment? By integrating. And what are you integrating? An adequate set. See, not just a set, but an adequate set of particular in-breadth and in-depth measures. So you have to decide what's the range in order to form this judgment. What do you need to look at? Okay. What is the range? What is the breadth that you need to look at? And to what depth do you need to look at? And you are setting this up beforehand of saying, look, if I want to form a good judgment on this, I need to look at this much breadth and this much depth. Okay. And so it is an objective standard. You have not yet started working on it. Okay. I mean, you might modify the breadth and depth scope as you go along, but you're saying, you're committed to saying, you're not going to, this is exactly opposite. What is this opposite of? This is opposite of a snap judgment. It is like saying, oh, I just don't like it, right? You're just, in that case, you are being reactive. You're using the sum total of your subconscious contents, and you're simply reacting to something. This is opposite of this snap judgment. This is that is an emotional judgment without any, by ignoring or evading, turning away from, leaning away from any contradictory evidence that you might be sensing even at the edge of your consciousness. This is saying, okay, what do I need to look at? What is the breadth? What is the depth? Where each is evaluated in regard to its effects on the worth of our life. So you're trying to evaluate each of those things. What is the effect of it on the particular judgment that you're forming about your life? Non-demonstrative, including ineffable measures, should be considered along with the demonstrative ones. So this is again a very profound point. This is saying, do not ignore all your intuitions. Include those. Don't go just by them, but include those. So all the explicit work and all the implicit work, you do all of that. Okay, so that's what this is saying, that you measure in this way. All right, let's go with, I'm going to give priority to people who have not spoken before. So Rupali, followed by Andrea. Anybody else wants to speak? Go ahead and type exclamation mark. Rupali.
Hi, thank you. So what I understand from this is, if you want to get better and have a better meaning to your own life, then you have to measure where you are. And so comprehensive measurement, so it's not just on a superficial level. So looking deep as well as looking across. And the key word over there is integrating. I think that you're not just taking one measurement, but you're looking at different facets of whatever you're measuring, and then doing it in a deep manner. So not just the superficial manner, to understand, okay, how does it affect me, my worth? Is it worth my time? Is it worth the effort? And then the other part is the measurable and the immeasurable too. So yes, the measurable ones we can demonstrate easily. And then there is, I think, the part that taps into your imagination is, okay, what else? What are the other, you can connect the dots to see, okay, what else am I learning from this measurement? So that's how I understand it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Rupali. You brought in a point that I had missed, and that is, any judgment is in the context of your entire life. So you're looking at your entire life, and you're looking at all the factors, all the relevant factors. You're saying, what is it that I need to look at? Everything. And then you're bringing them together. You're bringing them together. So you're making sure that you got everything. And you are aware, you're kind of feeling, okay, something is missing here. Many times you have feelings like that, which are like the beginnings of thinking, which are like saying, okay, there is something wrong somewhere here, and actually leaning into that and figuring out. So this is very much connected with the ambiguity of saying, okay, don't just go because many people, they just go with whatever it is that they have decided already, kind of pre-decided, and are going along, pretty much ignoring a lot of feedback that world is giving them. Whereas this is all about saying, take everything and beautiful. Thank you. Next up is going to be Andrea, followed by Vanessa. Andrea.
Yeah, so I think I've said this multiple times before, but because I come from this industrial engineering background, where we would have to present an idea and we would always have to do a measure of, what were things before. So just an example, like if you were assembling a circuit breaker, which is what we did, at my first job, you took a measure of how much time it took to assemble the breaker before, and then you make a process change and you do a measure of how much time it takes to assemble the breaker after. And if you don't have the before and after, if you don't have some form of measurement, it's really difficult to say that you made progress. And, progress can be a very, very fuzzy term, especially if you're talking about things like personal growth. But I think, like I said, coming from the engineering background, there's something to me that's so important about, you need the before measure, you need the after measure, you need to be able to show the difference between the two, and you have to agree upon what you're using as the measure. So if you're saying, the way that I measure my performance improvement is that it takes less time than it did before, and we agree that that's a measure of progress, then that's great. If it takes less time, but the quality is less, or it takes less time and the cost is more, then, we either didn't agree upon the unit of measure that defined progress, or we need to look at the whole process again. So I really like, because I think I remember when CJ gave this talk, he was talking about, there was an example in maybe the Design Way or somewhere where he was talking about measuring a table. And he said, I think what he had in the example was the perspective made a huge difference in whether or not you got a consistent measurement or not. And I just thought that was so delightful. But, that's probably because I'm super nerdy. But anyway, so I really like the before and after, because I think if you don't have that, it's really difficult to say that you made progress. So
Excellent.
I'm done.
Excellent point. Thank you, Andrea. And see, that is another advantage of comprehensivism, right? I mean, this way of measuring is second nature to an engineer trying to build something. So in the kind of technology world, all of it is second nature, and the idea of kind of personal growth is any kind of humanities tends to be a lot more vaguer. And so you can use all the tools and you can improve, you can be inspired by the precision and the dependability and the standardization and the careful thinking out of what should be the matrix of something, and then take it to a different thing. I know that we had a series on self-improvement by my friend John, and he keeps very detailed notes, detailed measurements. He has like 1 page for each day, and he measures everything. He has developed it over time, and then he reviews it every week and every month and every year. And it has this various ways of measuring things. What is it that was the best thing? What was it that I really screwed up on today? And there are many, many, many ways in which he kind of keeps track of it. And I think it's very, very powerful to, I think it's essential, what you're saying. Excellent. Next up is Vanessa.
Yes, I'd been to at least one of CJ's things on measurement for the Greater Philadelphia Thinking Society, and even just describe, what is measurement, what led to that particular way to measure, and also the value of it for the purpose you're measuring, whether the quality or the characteristic. There can be great measurement, but does it, it's pretty to look at, but maybe it doesn't suit the purpose at that point. But I think it's good to have different perspectives. If you've been fooled a few times, like you said, the perspective, or you can think that's gorgeous. You realize you're looking at a picture, the way the lighting is, and it's distorting your reality. So what you see is not what you're thinking through your head is not actually what you're seeing. You know, simply twisting your head. And even today, I had something as benign as I was walking along the Delaware River around, I guess, east where the duck boat landing was. And I'm thinking, that looks like a huge duck with a pigeon head. I had to do a double take thinking, okay, do I need to eat something? Is my blood sugar off? And then as I kept walking, I was thinking, okay, maybe it's taking a nap. You know, it's got the neck underneath, but still didn't meet the proportions. After taking about 7 steps and changing, looking a little bit backwards, like not head on, it was the female duck and the mallard behind. So the two together made it look that much bigger. So like I said, looking straight on, it just like the one bird. And they still were both taking the nap, but I realized, okay, they were 2 birds kind of superimposed on each other. But to look on, you would think it was just the one. And so if you have like 1.5 times a bird, and then it's taking that nap, okay, it can look like a bird that's got a pigeon head, you know, where the regular long neck and the, you know, the head should be. But how something quickly as that, you say, oh my gosh, you know, I jumped to conclusions. I believed what I saw. And when I realized, wait a minute, you know, like I said, if you're looking, that's kind of what I guess 2-dimensional vision. And as I said, okay, well, things are not what they seem. So if you're quick to go with that first measurement, and maybe it's good to take that second and third look, or maybe even try a different unit of measurement, and realizing why was that measurement chosen? Does it, like I said, was it just what was handy at the time? That's what it's always been. Or did they look and realize, okay, we have to use this tool, this apparatus, or maybe there's no true tool, but we have to have maybe some sort of consensus. So we're maybe at least talking the same language or the same subject, and maybe ideally the same language, and maybe the same idioms and
Thank you.
personality of the language, like the dialect, I guess might be the better term.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. Really appreciate that. Let's go to the next one. We're going to read number 4. Let's see. Jyoti, would you like to read number 4? Let me see. If
Okay, I'm going
Go ahead.
to go back to number 4.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's it. So we've covered the ones that had gotten 4 votes each. Now we are going to ones which have got 3 votes each. That's going to be number 4 and number 6.
So number 4 is induction, empiricism.
Mhm.
Okay. The aspiration to infer hypotheses or proposals for true beliefs from considered experiences, and to evaluate them by assessing their coherence with our full inventory of experiences, perhaps supplemented with new voluntary experience or experiments devised to test them. To test them. Induction was introduced in the resource, The Inductive Attitude, a moral basis for science and comprehensivism, discussed further in comprehensivism in the Islamic Golden Age, and expanded on the ethics of learning from experience.
Thank you, Jyoti. So let's go through it, phrase by phrase. The aspiration to infer hypotheses or proposals for true beliefs. So what we're trying to do here is that we are trying to infer hypotheses, proposals for true beliefs. So we're trying to create abstractions. That's what we're trying to do from considered experiences. So we're not just coming out. I mean, there is a very beautiful description of induction by Francis Bacon. He says, man is not like a spider. He doesn't, from within him, he doesn't just produce ideas and weave a web that is coming from within them. Okay. Man is also not like an ant, just collects a bunch of things and puts it in one place. He says, man is like a bee who selectively collects the choice things, choice nectars from everywhere, and then arranges it, builds it into a structure. That's what is the nature of human beings. So that's what it is. So that's is a very good summary of the induction process. So let me continue step by step here. The aspiration to infer hypotheses or proposals for true beliefs from considered experiences. So it's coming from considered experiences, and to evaluate them by assessing their coherence. Okay, you're evaluating the things that you've come up with, the conclusions that you've come up with, abstractions that you've come up with, hypotheses that you've come up with, assessing their coherence. Coherence is a beautiful word, with our full inventory of experiences. So you're trying to say a consistency, coherence between everything that you know and the abstraction that you have, perhaps supplemented with new voluntary experiences or experiments devised to test them. This is also a very important part. I think the testing part, the action based on these abstractions, these hypotheses. This is again the OODA loop idea, that you're trying to take things in, you're observing and you're orienting, and then you're deciding this is there, and then you're acting, and you're taking the results of the action. You're regarding the action as an experiment. In the next cycle, you're trying to reintegrate, reinduce from that. So that is what induction is. If you'd like to comment, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. So we're talking about induction. Anybody would like to comment on induction? David, I would love to hear what you got to say about induction.
I will. It's an important area because you can't always do what you have to do to get enough data to know what kind of answer is the real known answer. Like our knowledge of the cosmos, we need bigger and better telescopes. We need to look at things we can't get to yet. We need to take the data that's come in and make sense of it. It's overwhelmingly too much. We need, more tools, more computing power, more time just to extract the flavor from what we've got, right? So we're left with, in our lifetimes probably, it's going to be a mostly unknown what it is. Well, we don't know what it is in cosmology, you call it dark. So it's dark energy, it's dark matter. We don't know most of what's around us and the big rules for the big game of the universe in physics. So physics is supposed to be the big success story in terms of you nail that science down, it's got definite rules, everything's written in a closed form and you understand the system to a gnat's ass, as we say. That's a small unit. And so induction is an ideal virtue, but I think there's a dark side to it, which is we have to kind of fill in the gaps with imagination. And maybe there's a dark virtue here, which is knowing how much you don't have as you do your mental induction.
Wonderful. Great point. I think it is connected with this mystique that we've talked about, kind of looking.
Well, it's comprehensive. Yeah, it's a comprehensive lack. So you're not trying to even find your mistake. You're just knowing this is, yeah, maybe it's tied into that. I'm not sure.
I like the take of people like Newton, who says, I don't know how other people might see me. For myself, this after he's come up with Newton's laws and everything, he says, I don't know how other people see me, but as for myself, I seem to have been like a little boy playing on the seashore and who has found some shells being shinier than more others. So that is a very, I think it's induction requires like this combination of ambition and humility at the same time, of saying that, okay, I'm going to try my best to figure out what's going on, but hold open the possibility that I can be wrong. And to hold those two things in the mind, I really like that. I like the quote of, I think it is Sapolsky, strong opinions held lightly. So I like that approach of saying, look, this is the best as I understand it, and I will act on it, because you need to decide and you need to act. And so you do. But at the same time, you hold it lightly, in the sense that if there is anything in the action that is pushing back at where, what you think, then you let it, again, I think Yudkowsky puts it very, you quickly give way to, declare defeat in face of truth, say, yes, this is true. I screwed up. I was wrong. This is what it is. Thank you. All right. Anybody else wants to comment on induction? Go ahead and type exclamation mark. The next one is going to be adequate wholeness of meaning making. So let's go with that. Let's see, who would like to read? Vanessa, go ahead. If you could read number 6, adequate wholeness of meaning making.
Okay, that is the recognition that the meaning-making process involves the dynamics of Gestalt shifts and Gestalt crystallizations that bring into focus identified complexes of interdefined resonant relations that form significant wholes. Jan Zwicky highlights this idea as the experience of meaning, as discussed in the resource, to understand all and put everything together.
All right. So this is, amazingly deep. So let's see, recognition. So adequate wholeness for meaning making. So it is adequate wholeness. So you're saying, is it whole? Is this wholeness adequate? Adequate wholeness for meaning making. We are trying to make meaning. Okay, now this is a very deep, deep word, meaning. I would love to hear what people, what people think about meaning. What is meaning? What does it, what does it mean? The recognition that the meaning making process. So meaning making is what does it mean to me? What role does it play in my life? What is of value? What is the highest value? And that's what you're trying to aim at. The recognition that meaning making process involves the dynamic shift. So firstly, what it is saying is that meaning is not just given, that it has to be made. So there is a meaning making process. Involves dynamics of Gestalt shifts and Gestalt crystallization. Gestalt is like overall feeling for something, like the overall feeling. So the shifts of overall feeling and crystallization of Gestalt means whatever is vague suddenly comes into a sharper focus, that bring into focus identified complexes. Okay, so that bring into focus. So it's like suddenly everything was kind of vague and chaotic, and then suddenly it kind of congeals around something. Brings into focus identified complexes of interdefined. So there are all these relationships of different things together. Resonant relations. So resonant relations that form significant wholes. Okay, so you're trying to form these significant wholes. So let's go backwards. What you're trying to do is that you're trying to form the significant wholes. So this is really what this particular action means, or this is what life means to me. That's a significant whole. It's the resonant relations that form. So there you're looking for the antecedent of that is resonant relations, and these come into focus as complexes of interdefined things. So there's like things that were gestalt, things that were vague. Then they started shifting, and then they coagulated and brought something together and made one from this inchoate mass. That process of moving from a gestalt to a clear and simple whole, if you will, that process is what meaning making is. So that's just so amazing. Next up is would love to hear what anybody has to say about meaning. And what we will do is that we will just maybe we'll figure out what to do next. But go ahead and type exclamation mark if you would like to share. Joe first, followed by David. Welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you, and thank you for covering tonight. You know, when I think about this, I think about it in a lot of different terms, and Jan Zwicky's papers actually, CJ hosted a series of meetups on it as well. But I think that when you're talking about meaning, you're providing some kind of value, right, to someone, to something, and it's somewhat new. But I also believe that in a way, in design way, the ultimate particular kind of captures this to a certain degree. You start out with the desired state. Like, what is it that you actually even desire? You have to formulate something. You have to come up with, and then you design something, and then you start to see the whole from there. And then from there, you have a series of iterations that you go through in order to create something that's real, but that realizing that it's real, but it's not ideal, and that's an important distinction to have. That's what I see as the meaning making process is that it's kind of it was an iterative process that you went through. It's never really done. It's something that you keep on doing, and you start with a desired state, and you just keep working towards it. That's the way I kind of interpret it. I know that Jan Zwicky's is a little bit different, the way she explains it, but anyway, that's the way
Thank you, Joe. Next up is David, followed by Vanessa. David.
Yeah, that was helpful, Joe. That was cool. Now I'm thinking that there's more than one kind of meaning making that is making sense to me. You start to work with something that is already there. Let's say that you learn about a social situation, you learn about a tool in the shop. It has, look, it turns on, it does this, it can do this to this piece of wood, but now I can manipulate it. Now I've a kind of a growing understanding of sort of the different ways I can employ the thing. And finally, it clicks in how you'd be using this as a tool in a process that really joins in with all the other tools that have their roles. It's now it has meaning, not just an isolated thing that does some particular unconnected item. It has a meaningful membership in the community. So that is a kind of a gestalt, a completion, an image of the whole thing inside a nexus and belonging to that nexus. So that's a kind of meaning making through exploring and reflecting on what it all means in terms of your actions. And then Joe's bringing up this other aspect of meaning making, which is where you're generating something to have a meaning and you're refining that with some ideal. And you have to convey what it's doing with how you make it. And so that's a whole other side of it, that the gestalt is, it doesn't seem to be in the category. You're striving for this ideal that doesn't have a single picture, so you're looking from within all your choices at how to get towards that ideal. It's a very interesting thing. I guess that's what the design way is, kind of focusing on that other end of the problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Next up is Vanessa.
Sometimes I think it's helpful to compare the supposedly simple human. You think, where you look at the human as a whole, but we have the parts and mechanics that create us and get us to work. And within that, you've got the various systems, the digestive system, the circulatory system, neurology, and they are so combined with each other. And and even like talking about the gestalt shifts, you realize, wait a minute, this antibiotic that is going to maybe help me get rid of this infection, it's going to do havoc on my digestive tract. And then we realize, oh, there's good bacteria in there. Bacteria isn't all bad, but they are so connected. And maybe even the biochemistry, you've got the hormones and other things that interact with each other. And as soon as you think you've got one figured out, like I've heard they figured out the appendix actually does something. I'm not sure what, but it's not just something. You get that stomach ache, you remove it, and you're allowed to eat what you want for the next week. But like I said, you would think the human body is simple, and that over the past couple of years, they've discovered, wait a minute, with the cardiovascular system, that women display maybe far different symptoms than men. You think the pain in the arm, such and such, but women may never show that. So even the difference between the sexes, we're both homo sapiens, we're both, humans, but we can be vastly different with the same ailment.
Thank you.
Like
Thank you,
as simple as you think it is, it gets more and more complex.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. Next, let's go to number 12. Now we're going for things which have two votes. And I'm going to take this one, and it will probably end at this one. Because I want to take this is from the other category, the second category. This is number 12. This is from the category of integration, integrated judgment. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read it. Integrated judgment, the aspiration to better inform our judgment with comprehensive measurement instead of, or in addition to, a thoroughly refined ignorance, or perhaps based on some yet to be identified approaches. I have separated judgment from thoroughly refined ignorance to make explicit judgment making as a form of comprehensive comprehension. This virtue was introduced in the resource What is Comprehensive Learning and was further developed in the standard of all measurements, or judgment. This is about integrated judgment. So I'll read it one more time, a little slowly. The aspiration to better inform our judgment with comprehensive measurement. Okay, so to inform our judgment with comprehensive measurement. We talked about comprehensive measurement. Instead of, and in addition to, a thoroughly refined ignorance. Or perhaps based on some yet to be identified approaches. So let's keep aside the yet to be identified approaches. So this is, basing it on comprehensive measurement. Okay, so that's the heart of it. Aspiration to better inform our judgment with comprehensive measurement. I've separated judgment from thoroughly refined ignorance to make explicit judgment making as a form of comprehensive comprehension. So go ahead and, oh, sorry, Rupali, I did not realize you typed R, but I have read it. So let's go on. Would you like, I would love to have first people look at the distinction that CJ is making here between thoroughly refined ignorance. So let me read the thoroughly refined ignorance. That's number 11. That had also gotten 2 votes. So let's look at both these things together. So Rupali, could you read number 11, thoroughly refined ignorance?
Sure, I'll read that. Thoroughly refined ignorance, the aspiration to structure all our learning with a fabric of questions which systematically interrogate the gaps identified by our mystic mystique. That is, to situate all our experiences, perspectives, hypotheses, ideas, and generalized principles in a fabric of thoroughly refined ignorance. The hope is that this network of questions and ideas will better inform our judgment. Refined ignorance was introduced as hypostasis of knowledge, based on Stuart Firestein's idea that ignorance drives science, and Buckminster Fuller's mystique in the resource on redressing the crisis of ignorance, and expanded on in the resources on comprehensivism in the Islamic Golden Age, shifting perspectives and representing the truth, to understand all and put everything together, Dante's Commedia and our comprehensivity, and what is comprehensive learning.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Rupali. So first question is, what is the relationship between thoroughly refined ignorance and integrated judgment? Anybody? Or if you'd like to talk about either of them, you can go ahead and type exclamation mark. Go ahead, Joe.
So I'm thinking back to integrated judgment and the standard for all measurements. One, the thing that I remember taking away from the standard of all measurements is judgment, is that it is judgment. Like all our measurements are judgments. That is profound in its own right, because even if you're talking about counting something and looking at it objectively, you're still making a judgment within that framework. So that's what with as far as integrated judgment was concerned. As far as thoroughly refined ignorance and the relationship to judgment, it's kind of, I look at that and I see this as kind of intertwined with mystique as well. It's kind of understanding the gaps in your knowledge. It's understanding that measurement, you're not necessarily capturing everything. So that you're looking at it when you're approaching a problem, you're approaching it not just from you're kind of looking at it from the types of questions that you don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but I also remember with integrated judgment, it's about how you design from the design way. It's raising design judgment and to the level of intuition and cognitive judgment. And one of the things that was interesting about that was how basically you can set up a way of almost a set of values that you would have as a way of designing your experiments and understanding the world. And those would actually be formed judgments that you would then measure within that framework. That's it. But the thing I really, the most important thing I took away from standards of all judgment is that it is all our measurements are judgments. That's, you know, I know that sounds somewhat obvious, but I look at integrated judgment as just a understanding of the gaps in our knowledge as well. So I don't know if that was clear, but
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I mean, I don't know whether I'm understanding this correctly or not. I see it as being kind of, there is one part which is openness to your errors, looking out for errors and saying, okay, what can go wrong, and be responsive to that. That's kind of like breathing it, you know, letting life hit you, letting reality hit you, you know. And then there is a part where you have to say something to reality. It's breathing out. It is saying, this, I think, is the meaning of everything. This is what I'm going to do. It's a very narrow thing. It's like this. It is just going out and doing something. It is, and that is based on this integrated judgment after comprehensive measurement of saying this is what it is. So there is this, and I see this continuous back and forth, like breathing in, like Louis Sullivan puts in very beautifully, you know, it's like life began to break in upon him. So that is kind of being open to things, open to errors, open to accepting whatever it is that you're given by reality, saying it is to reality. And then a continuous breaking in from the outside and breaking out from the inside. The breaking out from the inside is shaped by the judgment. You know, you're saying, after considering everything, this is, you know, after doing the comprehensive measurement, this is my integrated judgment and I'm acting on it. And then, so I see it as a tension that way. Vanessa, what do you think about integrated judgment?
You said the two are kind of combined, like the thoroughly refined ignorance. It's maybe coming up in your own life of a common approach or a system you use, something maybe you're familiar with, enough you could describe to somebody else, but maybe beyond that. So if you are faced with something, maybe like 20 questions, approach, what am I going to look for its value? What is its role? Is it the tool? Is it the component? Or is it a complete product? So if you kind of have this approach you use to something, so maybe you have these questions in mind, what you're going to ask or what you're going to research about that, and then maybe going back and seeing, okay, did I ask the correct questions? Did they give me the answers I wanted? Do I better understand it? And maybe is there something beyond it? Like I said, you may have something that's a product, but wait, it can also be a tool or it can be a component in something else. So maybe looking at different uses. Like I said, so going back and forth, like, does this make any sense? And okay, maybe I can describe it perfectly, but maybe it's of no use to me, but at least I'm to the point, maybe beyond comprehension and familiarity, where I can maybe, to the point, maybe I could feel like I understand it enough that I could maybe teach about it and explain about it. But like you said, it's a give and take. You realize 3 days from now, wait, I was completely wrong. You know, maybe I took the great measurements, but they really didn't tell me what I was looking for. So either I have to start again, or maybe have someone else sit back and, you know, give me their hindsight, their opinion, and saying, you know, maybe what direction should I take and, you know, redirect myself? Maybe ask the same questions, but look at it from a different, you know, perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vanessa. All right. So that brings us to the close of the meetup today. Thank you very much. I mean, we managed to cover how many? 3 + 4, 7 of them. So only 6 remain. So they only got like 1 vote each. So in honor of finishing everything, if I could have a volunteer, Rupali, can you read? I'll give you, it's going to be first 2 and 3. Can you read 2 and 3?
I'm so sorry. I just closed that window.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody has it open? Joe, do you have it open by any chance?
You're muted.
Sure, yeah, I can do it.
Go ahead. 2 and 3.
Adequate breadth, micro-comprehensive. The aspiration to engage and accommodate a sufficiently large and diverse collection of experiences, stories, and traditions to adequately contextualize our explorations. Breadth and depth were introduced in the resource Humanity's Great Traditions of Inquiry and Action, and elaborated on in the resource on the comprehensive thinking of R. Buckminster Fuller and ambiguity, contradiction, and paradox. Number 3, adequate depth and micro-incisive. The aspiration to comprehend each subject we explore in as much detail and with as much clarity or rigor as we judge reasonable given our situation. The limitations on the breadth and depth of our comprehensivity was first explored in the resource necessities and impossibilities of comprehensivism and reviewed in how to create that which is not yet. The adequate was developed in the resource, the whole shebang.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and read number 10, and then we'll do 13, 14, 15 to close things out. So number 10, generalized principles / abstraction. The aspiration to find principles or relationships that abstract and accommodate vast subsets of our accumulated inventory of experiences. We learned in the resource to understand all and to put everything together, that these principles typically manifest as meaningful wholes that need to be carefully tested with our induction, our mystique, and comprehensive measurement. The most powerful principles are often developed through careful exploration of the ambiguity, contradictions, and paradoxes in our subject or situation. Generalized principles were introduced in the resource Comprehensive Thinking of R. Buckminster Fuller and are further developed in the resource Redressing the Crisis of Ignorance. Joe, can you go ahead and read number 13? Number 13 was the only one that did not get any votes, Joe.
Oh, wow. Well, design, evolution, and futures. The aspirations to navigate the big picture of it all through the conceptualities and practices of design, evolution, and futures. These ideas were introduced in the resources on rethinking change and evolution. Is Genesis ongoing? How to create that which is not yet, how to explore the future, and why. I'm surprised David didn't vote for that.
No, there's not a single vote.
I'm really actually surprised. No, he led something similar with a discussion on design and at a design course at MIT.
Go ahead, David.
Anyway,
You know, this is actually the one that is specific to saying action, taking action. I mean, the whole purpose of all of these epistemic values is so that we can make the design decisions, right? And so that was supposed to be sort of at the pinnacle. I think the last one has to do with, how to bring groups together as they do this. But the design, yeah, I mean, maybe we're not asking to talk about it because, this is sort of the clearer one of them.
Okay. David, do you have any of them in front of you by any chance?
I don't have.
All right. So I'm going to read 14. Go ahead, Joe, you can read 14 and I'll finish off with 15.
okay. Integrities, the aspiration to integrate all our comprehensive practice into a comprehensively integrated whole, into integrity. Bucky's approach to the omni-integrity was introduced in the resource Chronophiles, Data Mining Your Life for Comprehensive Thinking. For the time being, I am thinking this is a catch-all category, hence integrities is plural. We need a place for the integrated wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita and the Tao Te Ching, which the 52 Living Ideas group has explored in depth. I see it as the task of those who have been studying with these wisdom traditions to scope and measure them against our ever-evolving set of epistemic virtues for comprehensive practice. I think such wisdom traditions and all the other universalist traditions were introduced in the humanities' great traditions of inquiry and action, and considered further in the comprehensive thinking of our Buckminster Fuller. What is comprehensive learning? We first attempted to summarize integrities in Dante's Commedia and our Comprehensivity, and developed in the comprehensive exploration, comprehension, and collaboration, and in what is comprehensive learning. Nobody voted for this?
Only one vote.
Wow.
Okay.
Did you vote?
I don't vote for these. I don't vote.
It was up against some tough competition here.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but anyway, it was the Tao and the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know. Anyway.
Okay. Just last one. I'm going to talk about the last one, and then we will go ahead and do I'm going to talk about the upcoming meetups. All right. So the last one was collaborative, comprehensive exploration. That's what we do here all the time. The aspiration to listen to and work with others by sharing our individually articulated experiences, perspectives, hypotheses, ideas, and comprehensive comprehensions to collaboratively compose new understanding of our worlds and its people. This idea was introduced in the resource. The resource Redressing the Crisis of Ignorance as a reformulation of Buckminster Fuller's ideas about education automation. It was summarized in Dante's Commedia and our Comprehensivity and comprehensive exploration, comprehension, and collaboration. It was elaborated on in what is comprehensive learning. So this is one of my favorite ones. This is, the collaborative comprehensive exploration. I mean, that's really what we are doing here. This is really the whole, whole enterprise of 52 living ideas. And again, I mean, the point that I would make is that I don't know how you can be comprehensive without collaborating. Even if you are not collaborating with others face to face, you are trying to take in works of other people, of other fields, and in that sense, you're taking it all in. Wonderful. All right. So again, thanks to CJ for putting together this great list. And let me tell you about the meetups coming up. Tomorrow is going to be, tomorrow is Thursday. It's going to be Gospel of John. We are starting with chapter 14. We are going through the farewell discourses, and they are incredibly deep. So we've got some amazing people there, including Gary, who's done a master's thesis on chapter 13. So we're going to go all the way till the second best chapter in Gospel of John, which is chapter 17. The chapter 1 cannot be matched, so it's as good as it can get after the first chapter. It is the culmination in some ways. I would say it's the high priestly prayer. So it's just culminates all the core ideas are re-expressed in the most powerful way. So we're going through that. Next, on Friday, we have a meetup on the Divine Feminine, led by Evanique, Brian, and Penny. On Saturday, as usual, we'll have the Asian philosophy. And on Sunday, please join us for the Bucky series at 9 p.m. This time, we are going through the operating manual for Spaceship Earth. We've done a number of meetups on operating manuals. So you look at 52 Living Ideas, you can find them in the Comprehensivist playlist, or you can just search for Buckminster Fuller there. this is a massive project on Buckminster Fuller that we have launched. A number of people have come forward. We're going to have some amazing presentations. We're probably going to start with the comparison between William Blake and Buckminster Fuller. Their similarities and differences, actually similarities between those two, which is going to be it's an incredible presentation by Daniel Friedman. Then we're going to have a presentation by Peter Meissen. We're going to decide on the topic. We're going to have a presentation by Kirby Orner. He's got an amazing set of slides on synergetics geometry. So we're going to just be diving, and then we're going to be reading Buckminster Fuller's book, The Critical Path. So don't miss that. Those are going to be some amazing meetups. On Monday, we are doing, Poetry Mondays. And I don't remember the topic. You can check it on the webpage. Tuesday, we do the analytics, and Wednesday will be the next installment of the Comprehensivist Wednesday. All right, folks. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon. Good night. Bye.
Good night. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
David. Nice to see you.
Good
Bye.
to see you.
Good night, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye.